Welcome to the Performance Code, the official podcast of PCodeNation.com and the Performance Code community. Tune in each week as top performers and fitness experts share their tactics and strategies to get you on the fast track to achieving maximum results. And now your host, Justin Schollard.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? This is Justin Schollard. You're listening to the Performance Code podcast, episode number 10. All right, so this week, all about carbohydrates. How low is too low? How high is too high, for that matter? There's a ton of confusion around this topic. I don't take people's word at face value anymore when they tell me I'm on a low carb diet, I'm on a high carb diet, I'm on a moderate carb diet. I got to probe a little bit deeper and find out what's really going on, because come to find out, people just don't know what they should be eating. And by the way, how would you, right? This isn't your area of expertise. You're just listening to people's advice and making your own conclusions from it. Before we get into today's episode, of course, as always, I'd like to remind you, I have a couple of great options for you. A, go to PCodeNation.com, opt into my free lean muscle course. All right. It's everything you need to know. It's just like a 7-day email course. It's going to be sent to you with everything you need to build your own strength and conditioning routine. You can do this at any gym. It's meant for someone who goes to like your regular gym, 24, Gold, Equinox, whatever place you go. This program is designed to help you get the right workout schedule, approach your routine the right way, and make sure that you're staying on track and you're not just winging it, because when we wing it, we tend to continue to wing it forever and over and ever. So, PCodeNation.com, check it out. Free course. You got nothing to lose. And then if you'd like, guys, while you're there, you can book a free phone call with me. 30 minutes. We'll just chat, see where you're at with everything. If there's anything I can do to help, I'll be happy to share that information with you. It's not a sales call, I promise. It's just simply me getting to know my audience. Okay, so without further ado, guys, let's hop into today's episode. So, I guess before we get into how many carbs exactly you should be eating, let's just talk about the 4 different levels of carbohydrate intake. So on the one hand, we have very low carb, right? A very low carb diet, which we would call like a VLC. And that's generally around 10% or less of your daily calories coming from carbohydrates. That's crazy low, right? So on a very low carbohydrate diet, I mean, this is for people who have like a serious metabolic disease or neurological disease, for that matter, where they're under medical supervision and just have to have that low of a carbohydrate diet because of a very specific thing. What's crazy is that people are misinterpreting paleo to be this very, very low carbohydrate diet, trying to get themselves in a state of ketosis, which for some people absolutely works. But guys, not for everybody, right? Ketosis is not for everybody. You really need to try it, sure, but monitor yourself. Make sure that if you're performing better, if you're sleeping better, if you are stronger and have a better attitude, then maybe genetically a very low carbohydrate / ketogenic diet is for you. For some people, it just doesn't, guys. It kind of makes you feel like shit. So next in the ladder would be just a regular low carb diet. And low carb diets are about 10 to 15% of your daily calories coming from carbohydrates. So for example, to put this into perspective, if you're a male eating 2,600 calories a day, a very low carbohydrate diet is going to be about 65 grams or less. A low carb diet is going to be about 65 to 100 grams of carbohydrates. If you're a woman, a very low carbohydrate diet would be about 50 grams if you're following like a 2,000 calorie a day diet. A very low carb diet would be about 50 to 75 grams of carbohydrates. Now, next up on the ladder, we have like a moderate carbohydrate. And this is where I tend to think that most people in general should be in. This is the range that I think is optimal for my audience, especially because obviously if you're listening to this, you're probably somewhat athletic. You're probably at least a recreational athlete. You go to the gym. You might play like on a flag football team or basketball team or something along those lines. So you got to be honest with yourself. And I know the conundrum, I know the paradox that we get in where we hear all about how terrible carbohydrates are and how they make us fat, and we need to keep our blood sugar levels low. On the other hand, we also want to be athletic and train and go to the gym and lift weights and feel strong. The problem is you can't train like an athlete, but then be on a very low carbohydrate diet. For most people, that just simply doesn't work. You're going to feel lethargic. You're going to get sore. You might be more prone to injury. You're going to have issues sleeping. The moderate carbohydrate diet, which is around 15 to 30% of your daily calories, really, let's just say 25%. As a nice round number. I think 25% of your daily calories is a good starting point for most people. So if you're a male and you're eating 2,600 calories a day, you're looking at about 100 to 200 grams of carbohydrates per day, assuming you're active, right? Maybe if you're really active, you're closer to 200. If you're less active, you're closer to 100. And that can also vary day to day. So maybe on really active days, you eat 200, and maybe on days where there's really not a lot of activity, maybe you're just traveling, or maybe you're just, it's a lazy Sunday, you could probably get away with only eating 100 grams of carbohydrates on those days. So if you're a woman, that looks like about 75 to 150 grams of carbohydrates a day. And this is in the moderate carb intake range. This is just where I know I personally feel my best, and a lot of my clients that I work with report feeling their best when they're around 25% of their daily calories coming from carbohydrates. And now, if you are an extreme athlete, or you're incredibly active, or you're just a hard gainer in general, you want to be north of 30% of your daily calories from carbohydrates. What does that mean? Well, if you're eating 2,600 calories a day, then you want to be north of 200 grams of carbohydrates per day. And again, this is for people who are endurance athletes, incredibly active, are looking to put on some muscle. Maybe they're a hard gainer. Maybe they're just like me and they're really thin naturally, but they want to be bigger. So in order to create a surplus in those calories, you just have to eat more carbohydrates. And so for men, that's looking like 200 plus a day. And for women, you're looking at about 150 or more per day. And that's assuming for men a 2,600 calorie diet, and for women around a 2,000 calorie a day diet. Obviously, depending on your size, that's going to change. If you're a larger male, if you're like 200 pounds or more, and your body fat's relatively low, you might want to be eating closer to 3,000 calories a day. If you're a woman, anywhere from 16, 17 to 2,300 calories is usually the range that I see women do their best in. But the best way to figure this out is to just go online and find one of those body mass calculators. And what it'll do is it'll ask you to enter in your size, your weight, your activity level, and what your goals are. And then it's going to give you a very concise calorie range for you to pick. And then at that point, you can then use the equation I've just given you, around 25% of those calories coming from carbohydrates. And that's going to give you a really good idea of where you need to be on a daily basis to hit those numbers. So for me, I know that I'm usually around 2,800 calories a day, and that's for maintenance, right? So if I were to do the calculations and see where I need to be, I'm 6'3", I'm about 195 to 200 pounds. 2,800 calories a day puts me in a place where I can maintain my muscle mass. I can feel strong and athletic without any sort of extra body fat being accumulated. And so if I were to just do 25% of 2,800, then yeah, I'm right around that 200 calorie range, or that 200 grams of carbohydrates per day range. And I gotta say, that's kind of what I do, and I feel pretty good in general when I eat that way. So just to recap, guys, very low is around 10%. I just can't really recommend that. Now, if your doctor tells you otherwise, of course, doctor's orders, generally people with unique conditions are prescribed that low of a carbohydrate intake. Low carb is around 10 to 15. This is just like for people who are obese and we just need to get your weight down. 15% definitely seems to be effective. Moderate carbs, this is where the vast majority of us are going to fall into, 15 to 30%. So you can play with that range. Like once you determine how many calories you're supposed to take in per day, you can then try a few weeks at 15% and try then a few weeks at 30% and then everywhere in between and find out where you feel the best, you look the best, and you perform the best. And then for my extreme athletes, endurance athletes, hard gainers, people who are trying to put on mass, pregnant women fall into this category. We want to be a high carbohydrate, and that's around 30% of your daily calories from carbohydrates. Now, I can't close this episode out without mentioning what kind of carbohydrates we should be eating and what kind of carbohydrates we should be avoiding. Because let's be honest, not all carbs are created equal. What we want is carbs that are coming from plants and tubers, root vegetables, starches, fruits, basically things that would expire. Second on that list would be like your grains, like rice, quinoa. Oats are good. That would be okay. And then last thing we want to be doing is eating a bunch of bread, sugar, white flour in general. We always want to be going for, sweet potatoes, yams, potatoes in general. Any vegetable is fantastic. All those kind of carbohydrates are wonderful. Fruits are good. I would go for more calorically dense fruits like blueberries, strawberries, and stay away from like the more sugary fruits like bananas, apples, and oranges. But definitely fruits are good. Next on that list, rice, quinoa, rolled oats are great. And then last thing we want is sugar, flour, bread, those kind of carbohydrates, because that tends to just mess up our metabolism. All right, guys. So there you have it. That is my 2 cents on carbohydrates, how low is too low, in general, what you should be eating, the type of carbohydrates that you should be eating, and the ones you need to be staying away from. Now, there's obviously more to it, but that was what I could deliver to you guys in about 12, 13 minutes. So plenty of stuff to work on from there. What I recommend you do is just take a second, write out your daily calories by going to one of those body mass index calculators and figure out exactly how many calories you should be eating per day, and then just cut it in quarters. So 25% of it going to carbohydrates, and then fats and proteins would be the difference, okay? All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in this week, and I will talk to you guys next week for another great episode. This is Justin Schollard, over and out.
Thanks so much for listening to The Performance Code, the official podcast of PCodeNation.com, with your host, Justin Schollard, online at PCodeNation.com. We'll catch you next time. Have a question for your host of The Performance Code, Justin Schollard? Go online now to PCodeNation.com. The Performance Code with Justin Schollard. We'll be right back.